welcome to the Community Tree Nursery. Today I'm going to be talking to you a little about how to prune and look after your saplings with a kind of an apple and pear and orchard related twist, shall we say. So, when you come and get your saplings from Thames Chase or from anywhere else really, wherever you buy your saplings from, tree or shrubs, the main thing you want to focus on is the right time of year for planting. This little guy here is in a pot, so you've got to be aware of risks of root balling and that kind of stuff where their roots are going to constrict on themselves, but also you don't want the roots to be damaged when they're not dormant. So tree roots, if they're a deciduous species and they lose their leaves, once they've lost all their leaves, the tree roots themselves will go dormant for 3-4 months of the year, normally from November time to about end of February, March, and that's really when you want to do your tree planting. So if you buy a tree species and it's in a pot and you buy it during summer, for example, unless you get specific advice that it is going to be fine if you take it out, I would recommend that you leave it in its pot. So winter time is really when you want to plant the tree in its place. You're going to do less damage to the roots and less damage to the stem. With apple trees and pear trees and other orchard varieties, this is particularly important because if you damage the roots, you can slow the growth of the tree by 2 or 3 years, and that can have an impact on when you actually are going to be able to collect fruit from the tree. If you bought a variety which is supposed to fruit in, say, 5 years' time, you can really up that to 10 years if you're not careful about making sure you don't damage the roots too much, you don't damage the stem too much. Normally, when you plant a tree, put it in the ground, standard kind of tree planting process. I wouldn't worry about putting nitrogen or phosphorus or fertilizers or pesticides or chemicals or anything like that on it until the following year. Really give the tree time to settle, give the tree time to realize what nutrients it's deficient in, and then when the tree is then showing signs of nutrient deficiency, that's when you want to add your nutrients to kind of rebalance the soil, as it were. Unless you are aware that you're in a specifically poor nutrient soil area for, say, nitrogen, for example, you don't really need to kind of preemptively give it a boost. You can actually do more harm than good if you're not careful, if you don't know what you're doing. With your orchard varieties of trees, once you've planted it in the ground, the extra step, as it were, is you want to make sure the base of the tree is completely clear of weeds and grass. So normally when you plant a sapling, you want to weed around the base just to give it a bit of a head start, reduce competition for light, for nutrients, that kind of thing. But with your orchard varieties, you really want to have bare ground all the way around the sapling itself, getting rid of grass and anything like that. And you really want that ground to be there for 2 or 3 years to just give it the best chance possible. That will also help with your fruiting varieties and your kind of crop, and how soon you can get a crop from the tree that is a good size. After 2 or 3 years, you're really not going to have to worry too much about those kind of keeping the ground clear. It's not going to make too much of a difference past that point. The other thing that we do in winter is we do pruning. So this is a Chinese quince, so it will produce quince fruit in the future. And once it's grown larger, we might decide that we want to prune it to be able to maximise the amount of fruit we get from it. Typically what you'll do in that situation is prune the inside branches. So the external branches are still there, and you form almost like a cup shape of the tree. That will maximise the amount of fruit you've got. But do look up for your individual species what the best pruning method is, what the best pruning time of year. Although some trees like to be pruned in the dead of winter, some trees you actually want to prune them as you're just coming out of winter, because then when the tree kind of notices that it's spring and starts coming out of its dormancy, it can heal those wounds faster. Especially trees that bleed a lot of sap, you want to make sure they can heal as fast as they can to try and prevent disease getting in, which can be devastating if you've only got 1 or 2 trees in your garden. If one of them dies from a disease, you've lost half your trees already. In terms of kind of the normal care for your trees, during summer, make sure you give them a bit of a water when they're small. Anything this size, a drought will really affect them, especially when they're in a pot, or if you know that you're in a soil that drains really quickly. So just keep an eye on those dry spells, trying to water in the cooler mornings and evenings if you can. But really, once your tree's been established for 3 or 4 years, it should be able to look after itself, and it just needs time and a bit of care a couple times a year. Pruning during winter, perhaps a little bit of water during summer, but potentially not. If you want to put some mulch around the base of the tree, make sure that it's not too thick, and mulch can help suppress weeds as well, and is something we recommend you do if you have a young orchard tree especially. Thank you very much for listening to me today. If you want to come along to the Community Tree Nursery, we have lots of varieties that will be available for sale this winter. As I said, the perfect time for planting. I hope to see you soon.